Welcome, everyone, to episode 94 of the Phoenix Report. I'm Jack Connor. If you guys have listened to this podcast, you know that it's basically a random assortment of people I've met throughout my life. That seems to be the bulk of my episodes, and this one is no different because this is a young guy who I met, almost 7 years ago. At the time, my wife and I we were looking to save a little, have a little bit of extra income. We were doing okay. I mean, we weren't struggling financially, but we were looking to save a little bit more. So I ended up getting a second job at Disney World, which is, ironic. People laugh, the fact that I live in Orlando. Oh, you must be right near Disney. I'm like, yep. And so that's what I did. I ended up getting a part-time job on the weekends at the Art of Animation Hotel as in the food court. Basically being basically cleaning tables and then serving food and working the cash register, things like that. Trust me, it was an issue with my family. My parents were like, "What are you doing? Why do you need to work a second job? You have a master's degree. Why are you doing all that stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, I mean, I also have bills to pay now." And they're like, "We'll give you money." I don't want you to give me money. So it was a whole thing. But anyways, long story short, I was a part-time Disney cast member for about 2 years. So, that was kind of interesting. I never thought I would end up working for the mouse, but there I was for about 2 years. And while I was there, the one thing I will say about that job is that as part-time jobs go, it wasn't all that bad. You had some pretty cool perks. Working at Disney, you get free tickets, you get discounts on things, and the interesting thing about that job was that you got to meet a lot of interesting people throughout it. I was kind of blown away by the college program that they had there, which they have these kids come down. They're in college and they do a semester down here, and you'll get some of these young guys and girls from all over the world coming in. It's so you do get to meet a lot of interesting people. I mean, by that time, when I was doing that, I was already in my early to mid 30s, so I was practically a senior citizen by that point. I probably felt like everyone's grandpa, but it was cool. I got to meet a lot of cool people there, and actually some of them I've managed to stay in touch with, weirdly enough, through social media. And so the guy I have on today is a young guy who I met there when I was training on the job. I only think we were probably working together for maybe a couple months, but I just thought he was a really nice kid, and we kept in touch through Facebook and social media and that sort of thing. Well, now I kind of find out that he's in the YouTube realm now. Now he's putting content out on YouTube under the name BatuuBoii, which is boy with two eyes. I mean, I don't even know what the BOII thing is, because look, I'm 40 and I don't really understand a lot of that stuff. Maybe he can explain it to me, but he has this new channel, BatuuBoii, and a lot of it is Star Wars content. And so, seeing as how he still lives here in the Orlando area, he goes to the parks a lot. He's big into the parks. He's big into Star Wars. I am too. So it worked out pretty well. And obviously, if you guys know me from Florida Freaks, from Your Pal Al, I've been doing a lot of YouTube stuff with him over the years as well. So in addition to this podcast. So please welcome to the show the BatuuBoii himself, Felix Martinez.
Hooray.
What's up, buddy?
Well, what an intro, dude.
Thanks.
It's just the nice little prologue to our relationship. And,
and that's the thing. It helps to give these things context, especially for people who don't know you.
Yeah.
Just to kind of explain how we knew each other. Now, because I'm thinking you were probably the age where most of the college program kids were. Were you part of the college program, or was that just your own thing that you were doing?
No, I was part of the college program. That was back in 2015. I want to say I was around 22, 23 years old, and now I'm a senior citizen. Now I'm just in my budding 30s.
Well, I just turned 40 a couple months ago, so cheers to that.
Hell yeah, brother! Congrats.
Yeah, I mean it beats the alternative, death.
It's any day above ground is a good day, brother.
Exactly.
So,
Sorry, go ahead.
but yeah, so no, I've been into Star Wars for a while now. I mean, all my life, just I'm sure like you have. And what really kind of butted it like kind of blossomed like me wanting to like actually start a channel and an Instagram page and all that was a buddy of mine actually went a buddy of mine and I went to Star Wars Celebration last year in London.
Wow.
It's this big thing we were planning for a while, and he had been going since it was happening in Chicago.
Yeah.
So he'd been to the Chicago one, the Anaheim one. I think he went to the Orlando one too. I'm not sure, but
Now, do they have a Star Wars celebration every year now, or is it like every couple years?
so they used to have it every year. And then after last year, I think they decided to give it like an extra year or so to plan it out because next year it's in Japan.
Wow.
And they haven't done it in Japan in a while.
But yeah. For those that don't know, Star Wars Celebration is like their own con, like their own big convention, and that's wild though that you and your buddy saved up to go to London. Like that's a big trip.
It was honestly kind of like I wouldn't say a spur of the moment, but he was like sending me all of these videos and stuff from the one in Anaheim, and I was hyped. I was like, this is amazing. This is so cool. And he was like, you know what, dude? Like, I don't care where it is next year. We're going to go. We're going to do it together. And then they announced that it was in Europe. And he was like, well, shit.
Start saving up.
Correct. So we were like kind of like thinking in and out, like, are we even going to do this? Like going to Europe is like, that's a big thing. My buddy didn't even have his passport in the time. I'll get to that. That's like a whole other different story. I think you'll think it's really funny. But I mean, we bought the tickets and it was just insanity. Like these VIP tickets were selling out in like 60 seconds or even less than that. So it was just a scramble to try and get tickets. But I mean, once we bought them, it was like, all right, like we got the tickets. Now we got to figure out a way to get there. And we went there and I was just blown away. Like this was my first convention ever. Like I'd never been to one before. And just to see just the floor, like all the stores and all these vendors coming in, like with all of their Star Wars stuff. And it was just, I was blown away.
So not just Star Wars, but this is the first convention of any kind that you've been to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I had not been to MegaCon in Orlando because it always fell like on a weekend that like my wife and I were doing something. So I thought like, okay, well this is my first convention and my first Star Wars celebration. Like I'm gonna go all out. I'm going to, try and document as much as I can. I'm gonna go. I actually took it upon myself to become a 501st member.
Nice.
Before I went so that was
That's
a whole
huge.
other thing with planning this trip was, I wanted to go full out, like in a stormtrooper outfit, 501st certified. So I lugged that. It was a whole other suitcase of just the armor in there. Like, it was crazy, man. And
That must have been something else
that,
getting that through customs.
dude, you're telling me, like, they just see all this plastic and all this wiring, because, like, I had somebody at least, like, commission the armor, but everything in the helmet, I pretty much wired and did myself. Like, the helmet is all independent. Like, it has its own speaker system, its own cooling system.
That's got to get costly, though, to sign up for membership dues and whatever else the 501st requires.
So there's no dues for 501st. It's pretty much like you build your costume and you get it certified through them. Like they tell you to pretty much like take a whole bunch of pictures of just the front, sides, and backs of the outfit, a couple action shots, and you get certified. Right now I'm part of the Makaze division, which is the Orlando division, but I can go and do events pretty much all over Florida.
But you have to build it yourself. That's the deal.
Yeah. So that's their thing, is that like Well, because for me, like I didn't build the armor myself. I had somebody like pretty much send me all of the pieces, and I just kind of
Yeah.
put it together with like some E6000 and a couple other things off Amazon.
Because
But
I was going to say,
I
like,
mean,
where do you even find the materials for something like that? I guess it's just from all over the
I
place.
trust me, I had no idea. But I mean, like they've been doing this for like over 20 years now, and so there's just like forums galore of like how to build your stuff, like what's the best way to do it, and then that's where I would find a commission to pretty much like I would send my sizes and they send me back all of the armor pieces and then I just like kind of put it together myself.
Yeah, my cousin had been, looking to get into that, but I don't think he ever went through with it. But but that's cool, man.
Yeah, and so I did it. So and it was funny because Celebration was towards the end of the trip. We were there for about 2 weeks or so, and Celebration was the last 4 days of the trip. So I'm lugging around this second suitcase with armor through London, Dublin, Paris,
Oh my
back to
God.
London. So finally, the first day of Celebration, we're there, and I'm suited up. I've got everything going on. I got the fans in my helmet going on, and for all of that work and everything, I ended up wearing the armor for about 4 hours because when we got there, we're like standing, we're walking the floor.
Hmm.
There's people coming wanting to take pictures. Like my friend was pretty much like my character attendant at that point. Like he would kind of tug at me and be like, "Hey, this little kid wants to take a picture with
Of
you."
course.
Like, it's funny. I was like, "Wow, so this is what working at Disney feels like."
Right.
So then we get there and we get to the first panel, which is just the Lucasfilms panel. It's the one that they do every year, just kind of announcing everything Lucasfilms. And I get there, I sit down, and my thigh piece explodes. Like
Oh
you have a
no.
piece on your thigh that
Yeah.
wraps around, and it just explodes. And it's just hard plastic. So
Ooh.
it wasn't broken, but like the two pieces are like held butt together by glue like this, and it pretty much just split.
Oh,
So
okay.
now, whenever you're walking, there's two pieces of plastic just scraping at the back of your knee.
Oh,
So I was
that
like,
sounds painful.
so then I had to walk from the convention center all the way back to the hotel. Like taking the train is about like I'd say like a 15-minute commute, but
Yeah.
honestly, like it was so much fun just wearing the armor that I'm so excited to do like more 501st events. Like
Yeah.
my next event is Star Wars Day, Marlins Park. So
Nice.
we're gonna be doing that, but
I mean, and London is such a huge location for Star Wars. Obviously, with the original movies being shot in
oh yeah.
Pinewood, with mostly English,
Hmm.
crew and a lot of British actors as well. So
Oh yeah.
their roots run really deep over there as well.
Exactly. Like they have a really good standing relationship with Lucasfilms. I mean, and just like the love for Star Wars over there is just insane. Like, you grow up with it here in the States and obviously like it's at the Disney parks. Like you're pretty much saturated by Disney and Star Wars that like you go to another country and I'm thinking like I don't really know like how packed it's gonna be, but it's like everybody showed up for this event. Like it was crazy, and like their 501st division over there is insane. Like it's huge. It's like almost as big as the states here. So,
Nice. That's awesome.
um,
What
but
what what are some of your earliest memories of like Star Wars? Like what do you remember like the first thing that really got you hooked into it?
yeah, so I would say my earliest memory of Star Wars was what literally funny enough watching it in the in in my mom's car. Like she had like the little TV in the back of the car that kind of folded out,
Hmm.
and it got cable. And I guess Phantom Menace was playing on it, and I was just hooked. Like the pod racing was just
Yeah.
like I got hooked instantly. And then from there, like my dad also watched the movies. Like he had all three of them on Laserdisc growing up.
Awesome.
Um, Exactly. And I have those copies like with me today. Like before I moved out, he was like, "Do you want to take anything?" I was like, "Yes." Those Laserdisc copies of
Wow.
Star Wars. Like one because it's cool. Like it's like a giant disc,
Yeah.
But I'm sure because those came out maybe like late 80s, early 90s, like those Laserdisc copies, like
I remember
those are
those. Yeah.
probably like the three. Those are probably my copies of the theatrical cuts of Star Wars.
Yeah, probably. It's funny. I mean, I had seen laser discs growing up. I never had any of them, but yeah, I do remember those being a thing. So that's pretty cool. I had seen your channel and how
Hmm.
you did the all nine of the main Star Wars movies. You did a 24-hour marathon,
Yeah.
which was amazing. Like that's incredible that they even had that. Like
Hmm.
it's funny. Like I can't even imagine doing that at home, let alone. But let me say, I think the cool thing about it is getting to see those in the theaters, which
Hmm.
it reminded me a lot of when I was a kid. When I was around, I would have been 13, but it was the summer of 1997. And that was when they first reissued the original trilogy in the theaters. They called it the special
Yeah.
edition. That's when they made all the changes with the effects and everything. And it
Yeah.
actually wasn't the summer of 1997, but I remember going to those in the theaters and going to see them, being excited about it. And my parents were like, "Wait, we have these at home. Like, why do you want to go see them?" Because I've never seen them in the theaters. Because
Exactly.
that was before I was born. So I imagine it's got to be like a lot of the same appeal, especially for the prequel trilogy. Because I imagine you were probably too young to have seen those in the theaters.
So that was my biggest draw to it too. Like you said, it's just like it's such a different experience watching them like in theaters. And I mean, the only one I had really seen in theaters, like when I was young, was Revenge of the Sith. Like I remember fifth grade. That was the release date. My mom and dad were like, "We're gonna go watch this new Star Wars movie," and I just remember that whole day being super excited. And I
Oh
mean,
man,
Revenge of the Sith is my favorite Star Wars movie of all time. Like it's just
I
like the memories behind it and just like how much it's grown since then.
yeah,
Like
dude.
I love it. And being able to experience just all of them together was just it's that was the biggest draw for me. Again, it's like they're all on Disney Plus. Like I have all of them at home, like on
Hmm.
DVD. But watching them in theaters with a group of people that all like it was like almost being at Celebration again. Like you're in a room of people that are all passionate about Star Wars, just like you are.
Hmm.
So they're like I said in the video, like they're cheering for like every big thing that's happening, and they're cheering for the stupidest things on planet Earth, but
Yeah,
we're laughing
that would
like
be the only that would have been the only drawback for me, just because people like to talk in the theaters, and I'd be like, shut up. But but
it wasn't even
it's funny.
that. It was
It's funny
like
because I saw some of the clips that you posted, and they'd be cheering for like things that I wouldn't normally expect them to cheer for. But I think like, man, that's because of how meme culture is now,
oh
which
yeah.
that wasn't really a thing when I was growing up. But it's like, during Revenge of the Sith when Obi-Wan says hello there, that
Yeah, it's
then
just
people start cheering for that. I'm like, really?
because man, it's
It's like, ah,
iconic. It's such an
he said the
iconic like.
thing. He said the
Hmm.
thing.
So funny enough, the next like probably like my favorite audience reaction was Anakin coming in to see the younglings for in Revenge of the Sith. They're like, "What are we going to do?" Anakin ignites the lightsaber, and the theater erupts. They're just like, "Yeah!" Like
Dude, I
it's just
remember
like what
seeing that
kind of
movie.
like.
I remember seeing that movie for the first time in the theaters, like the weekend it came out. It was like jaws were on the floor during that scene.
Oh yeah,
We were like,
just
holy
because it's so
shit! Like
unexpected. Like it's real. Like Anakin's about to mess these kids up.
he's about to
But
murder those children.
correct. And now it's like you said, it's become such a meme
It's
about
crazy. Yeah.
like
But
it's
like I
just
heard people
people.
cheering during Attack of the Clones during the I hate sand line. I'm like, really?
Oh yeah.
Like, oh my
it's
god,
just
dude.
it's iconic, dude. Like
I
like who
guess.
says that? Anakin does, and
Right.
it's so funny and so out there. Like just
So does
even just
anyone
that.
who's ever gone to a beach ever.
Correct, me too. I told it to my wife yesterday, like it just in all seriousness, because she's like, "Would you want to live at the beach?" I'm like, "I just don't really like sand," and then she just went, "Because it's coarse, rough, irritating, and it gets everywhere." I'm like,
I mean, it does though. You know.
it really does. Like Anakin was speaking the truth, but just like in Attack of the Clones, it was just so funny to be in a theater of people watching the relationship between Anakin and Padme develop, because it's so awkward. Like he is that angsty teenage kid from the 2000s that like we all were, but now that we like look back on it, it was just like who talks like that? Like just being around her is intoxicating. Like just it was so funny. Like just through the good of Star Wars and the bad.
I remember going to see that in the theaters. It was actually one of the first dates I had with an old girlfriend of mine. So that was that was pretty cool. But I also remember like people just cheering when and losing their minds when they first saw Yoda with a lightsaber. They're like, what is happening right now?
Oh yeah, it's like nobody had seen that before. And
that movie gets a bad rap
for
for whatever reason. I really liked it.
I do too. I think it's just more of like, and again, watching this like from back to back, like it makes so much more sense. Like the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin in that one, it's so like tense just because like they're just starting out like as Master and Padawan, and it just doesn't feel right, I feel like. And it's like a lot of like the dialogue just really wasn't there. But then you go into like Revenge
I mean,
of the Sith.
a lot of it is George writing those scripts.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to take a bit of that with a grain of salt. Like this isn't the real world. This is Star Wars.
Correct. And it's just, and he was at a point in his career where like people weren't going to tell him no. He just made one of like the most successful and money making trilogies of all time.
He got to make the movies that he wanted to make.
Correct. And now he had full control because he wrote and direct all three of those movies. So they're just like, they just gave him the reins to go and do silly things like make Jar Jar and just, but I mean, we love Jar Jar now.
Yeah. I mean, I remember people got so bent out of shape about Jar Jar, and I was like, okay, like he's barely in the movie, whatever.
And it's upsetting because it's like, you
don't understand, man.
About, like, what happened with.
There were a lot of people my age who hated the prequels.
I can understand that.
But like now, when you see what the sequels are it's like they aren't so bad now, are they?
Correct, because like they had character. Like yes, like you have like the old heads of Star Wars who like at that time didn't really like appreciate it because it wasn't the original trilogy. But you had kids like my age who watched those movies and like that was our Star Wars. Like that is what we grew up on. And now that we've become adults, like, and with the help of the internet, like we have a platform to voice our love for these movies and show appreciation to people like Ahmed Best, to people like Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor, who in their minds, like they're going into a Star Wars movie. Like that's a big deal. Like it's like the biggest thing of their careers. And they're getting told that like it's awful, this isn't great. And I mean, like Ahmed Best was like in a really like bad place like when that came out, and now that we're here to like voice our love for those prequels and for him. Correct.
I mean, Jake Lloyd ended up quitting acting,
Correct. Like it's just, which Jake Lloyd like didn't deserve any of that. He was like 10 or 11 years old when he made those movies. And his character is iconic, no matter how silly his like. Like my favorite line from him, it's so just like throwaway, but it's when you see like, it's right before the Darth Maul appearance, but Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Padme are like running towards the doors, and Qui-Gon tells Anakin, go stay in that starfighter.
In the cockpit.
And he just goes, he just gets cut up by Qui-Gon to say, just stay in the starfighter.
Yeah.
It's such a throwaway line, but like even in the theater just watching it, I was like cracking up. He's just like,
Yeah.
But it's just like those movies have so much character, and I feel like
They
the
are,
sequels,
and I feel like the people who nitpick some of the prequels and the sequels, I think they kind of forget that like the original trilogy, those weren't all perfect either. Those all weren't all flawless. They're just movies, you
oh
know.
yeah, George was just having fun, man. Like he was creating his own world. He did whatever he wanted, like, and it's last. Like we're still talking about it. Like the original Star Wars is over 50 years old, and look at what it has made, like from the
Yeah,
influence of George
it's
Lucas.
coming up on the 50th anniversary. It's
Hmm.
almost there. 2027 it will be. But yeah, it's
Correct.
I think it fundamentally changed the movie business. It changed how these movies are marketed, about
Hmm.
merchandising and everything. It's just,
Big on
when
merchandising.
you look at like the pop culture that happened during the 80s, for example, like a lot of that stuff doesn't happen without Star Wars being as big as it was.
Correct.
Like
And it's
without
just it's such a pop culture phenomenon.
yeah, without Star Wars, I don't know if we get, GI Joe and Transformers and Masters of the Universe at being as
Hmm.
big as they were. I mean, GI
Correct.
Joe existed before that, but still, like,
But just like the tie-in between like media and like merchandising was such a huge thing in Star Wars. Like George had the mindset of the films, but also having that mindset of like how to sell this like to the public, like to the children watching this movie. Like just putting the little things, like putting a lightsaber in the movie. Every kid is going to want a
yeah,
lightsaber at home.
yeah, it was amazing. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear how people react to it now. Just with Disney owning it and with the current things that are coming out now, which some people like, some people don't like. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, it's interesting in 2024 to see what the state of Star Wars is now. I'm not,
Exactly.
you know, it's one of those things where I mean, I'll tell you this: when Disney first announced that they were buying it, I remember in 2012, I was thinking, even up until that point, I didn't think it was going to be more than the 6 movies that we got.
Hmm.
And honestly, I was okay with it. Not because I didn't want to see any more, but I was like, you know what? It's fine. I feel like they told a complete story here. I didn't feel like I was owed any more movies, really,
Hmm.
or anything like that. I do remember as a kid hearing that, hey, George might do a 7, 8, and 9 one of these days. But then he said he wasn't going to, and I was like, you know what? It's cool. I'm
Yeah.
okay with it. I didn't anticipate Harrison Ford coming back or anything like that. And that being said, it made sense at the time, when Disney was going to be the ones to buy it, because it's like, what does Disney do better than anyone else? They make stuff, they make merchandise,
Hmm.
they mass market thing, you know, they put the machine behind it, and they have all these legacy properties, and
Exactly.
and there's been a lot of good stuff that has come out since the Disney since the purchase. Like I really loved Rogue One.
Hmm.
I thought Solo was a lot of fun. I think the reason it lost money is just because of some of the behind the scenes stuff. But like, I enjoyed the movie that we got out of it.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was just fun. It was a fun, just Star Wars adventure. Like, there's no sense of risk to it. Like, it's not like is Han Solo gonna die at the end? Like, no. Like,
No,
there's still like 3 more movies that gotta be made. But I really enjoyed just how much fun it was. Like Rogue One was a nice departure from just like kind of being goofy. I felt like it was a more like kind of grounded in reality version
yeah, it
of
was
Star
like more of
Wars.
like a war movie than anything else, and
They
just to
they
see
could
it,
have not had Vader in that movie and I still would have liked it because I really liked Andor too, like just from how like
yeah, like
sort of
it,
grounded in it. Like it's a story about like rising up from a system that is not for the people. Like
and
it's
it
just
dovetails into A New Hope just so perfectly. It's just
oh,
like
Rogue One, yeah.
it's like this ancillary story that's happening at the same time. I thought it was really
Hmm.
clever how they did it.
Exactly. It was my favorite Disney like Star Wars movie. Like
Yeah.
I remember I worked in an IMAX theater in college, like after my program, and that was the first movie that came out when I started watching it. And I mean, obviously the movie played throughout like many times throughout the day, and so and it was a really slow IMAX, but it was huge. Like it's the 9:6 format, so it's massive. So I would just be like in the projector room on my breaks, just like timing my breaks right to know when that Vader in the hallway sequence is going to be happening. So I would just like pop into the projection room. You have the audio right there. Oh my god, dude! Like I have such good memories of Rogue One because of that. Like it's one of my favorite like Star Wars movies today.
And it was cool because like this is at the same time the sequels was happening, so like we got to see like. It was cool, like seeing they had the sequels, but we also see like this particular era of Star Wars as well, and it's just seeing the difference between some of the generations. What's some of your opinions on the sequels? Because I know a lot of people have a lot to say about it. I don't know what your take is on those.
So for the sequels, like obviously, like I'm a lover of all things Star Wars. It's like what I've told you. Like I don't want to be one to hate on Star Wars because I genuinely love it so much. Like, are there things that could have been done better? Absolutely, but it was fun to watch. Like Force Awakens when I first watched it, like it was a pretty much just this is not the prequel trilogies. Like this is old Star Wars. Like this is pretty much A New Hope 2.0. But it was just fun to like even just the build up for it. I was just more excited that I was able to go through like a theatrical run, like kind of like having that hype built up for a new Star Wars movie, like as an adult. So it was just fun to, watch the first trailer drop. Like when you see Kylo Ren ignite like his lightsaber for the first time, and we're all freaking out because we've never seen a saber like that before. And then just knowing that like every other year we're getting a new Star Wars movie from this trilogy. And it's exciting. Like I really liked Force Awakens. Last Jedi is my favorite of the sequel trilogy, funny enough. Cause it was just, again, Force Awakens, we got a lot of the same from the originals, but Last Jedi was kind of just like its own thing. Like I really enjoyed it. Besides like the Canto Bight like casino part like scenes, like I could have done without, but like I know it had something to do with the story. But I mean, just like that whole like story connection between Kylo and Rey was really cool, where they're like connected through the Force. Like Luke's kind of departure from like having him separate himself from the Force. Like I thought it was a different thing that I really enjoyed out of it. I know that movie is like very polarizing, but I know, but I really enjoy it a lot more. I mean, from the marathon, even watching Rise of Skywalker, like it was not only because it was the last movie of a 24-hour marathon, but it's such a drag to get through. Like it's just because it's a lot of those things that you see now, like with the new Ghostbusters, where it's just like, remember this? Like now this is in the movie. And then just even watching like those scenes with like Princess Leia, like using the deleted scenes from Force Awakens, like with Carrie Fisher, like it was just so jarring to watch again. But
I mean that must have been a difficult situation, obviously, because she had passed away shortly before The Last Jedi was released, so they had to figure out something.
Correct.
That they were going to do.
Which I will stand on this rock that she should have died in Last Jedi. When she got sucked into space, that would have been the most amazing. Like it would have been awful and shocking and jarring, but it would have been the perfect ending to Princess Leia. Like just her son not wanting, like he had every instance to like pull the trigger on his TIE fighter to like shoot down the rebel ship, and he doesn't, but then somebody else comes and takes off, blows up that ship and kills Admiral Akbar and Princess Leia. Like that would have been just like, you know what?
I remember that in the theaters, looking at that scene and be like, oh wow, is this how they're going to do it? Like,
and I would have, you know what? it's shocking. It's something we haven't seen before, but then we also got something we hadn't seen before. We saw her Mary Poppins her way back into the ship and
Like a lot of people
survive.
had a problem with that thing, and I'm like, I don't. I'm like, we're in a movie full of space wizards at this point, and she has the Force. Like
Correct.
it doesn't really bother me that much that she's doing it. Yeah, it looks kind of goofy, but this is
Which I can
this is
also
Star Wars we're talking about.
and going off of that, like, I can also support that. Like, would have liked to have seen like that been the end of Leia, like because the fact like Carrie Fisher died, like sure, but it also just explains that like what they go into in Rise of Skywalker, that she is a Skywalker, like her dad is Darth Vader, she is Force sensitive. She got midichlorians too, dude. Like she's
and I did like the reveal in Rise of Skywalker where they showed like almost a flashback of her and Luke doing Jedi training. That was killer.
Stuff was cool in Rise of Skywalker. Like giving her that like little bit of peace from like showing that she is a Force user. Like it was very well deserved. Like Leia was already this like strong female character. Like she was like a rebel general. It was already these amazing qualities. And she's a Force user.
And it was one of those things that was implied in Return of the Jedi. Even back then as a kid, I was thinking like, I wonder if Luke will teach her how to do it then. Yeah. And I don't dislike the sequels as much as a lot of people do. I do think there were a lot of missed opportunities there, and I do think it was a little bit rushed. I think it was a little bit poorly planned. Obviously, with a lot of stuff going on in the background, with who's the director and does the left hand know what the right hand is doing. I will say this about The Last Jedi, and I really liked it a lot when I first saw it because I had that sense of unpredictability that I hadn't really had in Star Wars for a long time. Because, I'd seen, because, I'd grown up, I knew where the story was going, and seeing the prequels, well, I knew where that story was eventually going to lead to. And now it's like, now I don't know what's going to happen because it's not necessarily tied into the expanded universe. Although, looking back, I kind of wish they did adapt a little bit more from the expanded universe because there were some good stories there. Having, and I knew that it was the second movie in a trilogy, so I was trying to give it some leeway. It's like, all right, well, stuff is going to happen in the middle. They're going to, it's going to end the way it's going to end, and and I thought Rise of Skywalker was good. Like I enjoyed it. I look back and I'm a little bit more critical now just because it's been a few years and I can look back on it and see, which I don't like the movies as much as I do the first six. However, I think there were some cool moments throughout most of them.
Absolutely.
I think my biggest criticism about Rise of Skywalker is that they introduced a lot of characters, but like we didn't really spend a lot of time with them. Like it seemed like they were throwing in a lot of like new characters, just like, hey, let's sell some more toys.
That's kind of like what it felt like. Yeah, like I forget like what her name was, but it was like the kind of like criminal or like not really a bounty hunter that
Zuri.
They meet like when they Zuri, yeah.
Yeah, that was
that like was like there's that like sort of like quasi relationship with like Poe
Carrie
Dameron.
Russell was playing her, and like they implied that she was like Poe's ex-girlfriend or something, but it's like there wasn't really a lot of development that I understand why John Boyega was a little bit upset because I feel like Finn could have been developed a lot more. I always thought he and Rey were going to get together.
Yeah, and not even necessarily get together, but like have them just because obviously Luke tried to build back up the Jedi Order and that failed because of Kylo. Like have Rey teach Finn, like, because they implied even in Rise of Skywalker that he's force sensitive. Like, have them develop that relationship of like, because I mean, by the time Rise of Skywalker happens, like Rey is like her own like sort of Jedi master thanks to like Luke and his training. Have her develop Finn and restart that like master Padawan type relationship. Like,
yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of unanswered questions about things that happened in between Return of the Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, because it's such a huge time jump. I feel like there's a lot more that they could fill in between that, and you know,
that's what I love that the TV shows are doing now. Like with Mando, with like Book of Boba Fett, that like we're getting that time jump between like Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. Like, and I love the Mandoverse stuff. Like, it brought me back to that feeling, like what I mentioned of just like watching Phantom Menace for the first time, of like having like that like kind of feeling that like you are watching like Star Wars content. Like, not that I didn't feel that throughout the sequels, because obviously like everything is happening. You got Han Solo and Luke and all of that, but it's something refreshing and it's something new that like Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are going in on those shows too.
They are. I gotta say, I'm not particularly fond of this trend they have of taking, and it started with Luke, where it's like they take these guys and they turn them into this like, you know, nihilistic, like bitter version of themselves. I mean, they do build them back up later, but like a lot of people had issues with what they did with Luke's character. And at the time,
Mark Hamill had issues with what they did with Luke.
He did, yeah. And I kind of understood it at the time, because it's like, all right, well, obviously he's not going to stay this way. But like, you know, looking back, I was like, all right, well, at least it explains why he wasn't in Force Awakens all that much. So at least there's that. But yeah, I mean, it's just I feel like there was a lot of different directions they could have gone with that, and I just. You know, I just felt like there were a lot of missed opportunities. That's all. Like we didn't get to see Harrison and Carrie and Mark and Billy D all together as those characters the last time. That would have been cool. Like, how funny would it have been to like see Luke meet up with Han again and Han call him kid after all these years?
Oh yeah, and they're just old ass men, but
right.
No, and it's that those are things that, like what you said, like it's all missed opportunities. I just feel like at that point when Disney acquired Star Wars, like it was still in that time where like the prequels were still not favorable to everybody. Like it was still kind of like just this black sheep of the series, to where I think it put Disney in a position that like we need to see like what worked with Star Wars, and that's what we need to start coming out with before, and we need to make sure that this starts making money before we develop anything else Star Wars related.
Yeah, I mean it was interesting because they tried to feature, you know, the older characters, and they tried to set up the newer characters, but I feel like I don't feel like any of them really came out looking all that great, you know?
Yeah, and even just watching them again, like it's Solo feels like Han Solo feels just like a very basic version of himself, but it's also probably the most enthusiastic we've seen Han like in a while. Probably because Harrison was just like, okay, we can finally end this Han Solo character. So I'm just gonna act my ass off in this movie.
I was upset when they killed him.
Oh yeah, me too. Like I'm saying, like the theater was just dead silent, like when Kylo killed Han. Like it was another one of those Star Wars moments that you're like, this is such a turning point in the series now. Like I
was angry about it because I think someone had spoiled it for me on like a comment section of a YouTube video one time. So like, and even my wife who was there with me, she was like, "Oh, I'll bet they're gonna kill him," and then they did kill him. I'm like, why would you say that? So yeah,
the thing that breaks my heart the most about that scene is Chewie watching his best friend get killed by his son, who I'm sure, like growing up, like like
Yeah.
Ben Solo as a kid was like playing with Chewie. Like that's
Yeah.
like
He was
that's like
Uncle
his
Chewie,
nephew
probably.
pretty much. He
Yeah.
was Uncle Chewie, and now you're watching like your nephew kill your best friend. Like it's just it's so heartbreaking. Like even watching it in
was.
theaters the other day, like I was just like I felt so bad for Chewie.
But getting back to what I was saying about Luke is like I felt that they kind of did that with like the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. I didn't care for that show, and I was really disappointed by that one. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but because it's like I felt like they kind of did the same thing with Obi-Wan that they did with Luke, where it's like he's this bitter version of himself, and okay, yeah, he
Yeah.
kind of turns it around at the end, but it's like why do you need to put him there to begin with? Like why do you need to this trend of deconstructing everything? Like it is
Yeah.
really just it's sort of a Hollywood trope at this point, and I don't like it.
Mm-hmm. I just think like for like again like there were some gripes that I had. I think the Obi-Wan series could have just been a movie. Like it could have just been like a 2.5 hour movie. There's a cut actually out on the internet called the Patterson cut
Oh,
that this dude literally took all of the episodes and cut it into a movie and changed like some of the story arcs like with the main Inquisitor in the show, like not the Grand Inquisitor, but the one below it. But they made her character a little bit better. But I feel like
yeah, Reva. I didn't like her
Reva.
character at all.
Well, that's it, like 'cause she's kind of like she isn't as badass as like the trailer made her out to be. But like the Patterson cut just makes her like this stone cold killer. Like she's out there to find the Skywalker kid and kill this kid.
Yeah, that I could have gotten behind because I felt like, even with explaining some of her background, I can imagine, like I felt like she should have been killed at the end of it. Like, and I know this is spoilers because like even if she like what kind of was a good person, I could see her like losing her mind knowing that Anakin has a kid. And then just going off the deep end, and just, like she's about to murder this little boy, and like Obi-Wan and Ben just has to put her down.
Yeah,
like that would have been.
But going to your point of just like having Obi-Wan like with Luke, it's kind of like hit or miss of like why he should be out and being bitter. But like at this point in Obi-Wan's life, like he lost like his brother in Anakin, and now he is pretty much like not forced, but like he has this grand task to like watch over Luke now as he grows up, and with knowing that like Uncle Owen knows who his father is and knows that this guy has ties to who his father was. So having that kind of like he wants to train the boy, and his uncle doesn't want to because he doesn't want him to end up like his father. So I would be kind of bitter too. Like you have this like loving relationship with your best friend's son after you just lost your best friend to the dark side. Like
I know. Like and believe me, I get all that. It's just the way they went about it, I didn't really care for.
Yeah. I mean, like I get what you're saying. Like when he was like working the coal mines, like he's kind of like this scruffy, like gruffy, like I would have preferred like a detachment, but like showing like more emotion and showing that like obviously like he's still affected by what happened in Revenge of the Sith and like what happened to his best friend, and like even like when we first like have him sense that Anakin is alive like in the show, like it's such a I would have thought it would have been like a much bigger moment, but it's just kind of just like, oh, what? He's alive? Like, oh, that's crazy. Like,
yeah, it's one of those things. I almost wish they kind of left it alone and just kind of let the mystery there. But it also explains why he calls him Darth in A New Hope. So I guess that's
true. Yeah.
So
like, and I feel like that like the Obi-Wan show was heavily catered towards millennials who grew up watching Hayden and Ewan be those two characters. Because I mean, like watching those two fight again I had my gripes with the show. Their two fight scenes are probably some of the best Star Wars content like I've seen in a while. Like that ending scene, like when he gets the helmet cut up
Yeah, that was wild.
And like you see Hayden like in the suit finally, because it was kind of hit or miss, like with Revenge of the Sith. Like, was Hayden actually doing the voice? Was it James Earl Jones? Was he in the suit? Like, no, that's Hayden in the suit, having it mixed up like with James Earl Jones and his own voice talking. Like, it's just, it was probably, besides like the first episode of Mandalorian, it was probably like one of the peak Star Wars moments for me in a long time, just because I love that character. I love Vader. I love Hayden Christensen's portrayal of the character. It's just, it's so good. But there are aspects of the show that like I probably would have changed too.
Yeah, and you can say that about a lot of the current series that are out there. But like, do I think Star Wars is damaged beyond repair? I don't think so.
No, I mean, like, it's not. Like, they're going to keep creating and building off of the blueprint that like George gave them. And I mean, it's in great hands now. Like, obviously Kathleen Kennedy is still like president and CEO of Lucasfilms, which I know.
Yeah, I'm not really a huge fan of hers, but you know, whatever.
But Dave Filoni is like creative director now, and he is the Padawan to George Lucas. So I mean, like, he wouldn't do something if he didn't think that George would approve of it. And I mean,
I think Filoni has a lot more hits than he has misses. So it's.
Oh yeah, I mean, Clone Wars is peak Star Wars. Like, it's the best Star Wars media that we have out there.
The final four episodes of season 7 were amazing.
Exactly, and especially for people who like the Clone Wars made people love the prequel series. Like, it's just, it gave people a like substance to like that relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan. It gave the clones actual purpose. It made people love them.
Have you seen those episodes like cut together with Revenge of the Sith, like the Revenge of the Sith Ultimate Edition?
Yeah, like where Ahsoka is like in her ship, but she kind of hears like the events of what's going on, like hearing and feeling Anakin like turn to the dark.
So good.
Like, watching that for the first time, like without like the context of it, obviously like in the episode, but you know what's happening, was just like
amazing.
It was, and just like even just like the last shot of like Vader seeing like the like Ahsoka's troops helmets and seeing
the music and the score was spellbinding.
Oh yeah, by Kevin Kline is just, he's amazing, man. Like, yeah. And I feel like that's just another thing that, like, you know, it's so big to me in Star Wars. Is, I mean, like, you're a music guy. Mm-hmm. I'm a big music guy too. Like, I've grown up with music my whole life, and I feel like a thing that keeps bringing me back to Star Wars is the scores. Like, John Williams' scores are like, and they're peak like soundtrack. Like, it's just, they're so good. And I feel like just the music like by Kevin Kline and just what he did in Ahsoka, like with the Japanese influences on that show, like,
yeah, that
just made me like love those series even more.
Definitely. Well, anyways, I could talk about that stuff for hours, but I'm not going to. But real quick, let's get into what people can expect from your channel. Yeah.
So a lot of it, and so funny enough, to answer your earlier question from before of like, why is it 2 eyes?
Yeah.
So again, there is that cultural aspect of like boys spelled with like
that's
eyes
the thing
and
I've seen online. I wasn't sure how that started, but like I've seen that here and there.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm too old to understand that.
and so am I, honestly, but I just really thought it fit in because Batu ends with 2 U's and boy ends with 2 I's. So I just thought that fit a lot better. But so in the context of the channel, right now I've been making a lot of reels of just like past and present interviews about Star Wars and just giving people that sort of aspect of it. And then obviously like there's part content that is heavy on it. I feel like I want to do a lot more content in the parks and just what they have to offer, and you know how little things in there connect to the overall like story of Star Wars. And obviously, like the Lego part is a big thing of it. A lot of celebration content, especially. I bought my ticket to Celebration Japan, so I'll be going there next year.
Oh my God,
Yeah, it
that's
was. It
a big
was.
trip.
We bought the tickets. We bought the tickets the other day. Even just kind of thinking about it, because
That will
again,
not be
like we
cheap,
were left in
sir.
20. I Trust me, I've been eating soup for like the last 2 months. It's just wanting to save money on that, but it was something that, again, the same buddy and I were just thinking about it. Like, how the heck are we going to get to Japan? Like, what are we going to do? Like, what's going to happen? Then the tickets dropped. We bought them, and we're like, again, it's the same thing with Europe. Like, okay, we have the tickets. Now we just got to figure out a way to get there. Like, but a lot of content from that. It's like, the build up to it is going to be the majority of the content. Some cooking content as well. I just bought the Galaxy's Edge cookbook, and I want to start making recipes from that, as I love cooking. So that might be a series down the line. Just making some of that's just picking a recipe out of the book and seeing where it goes from there. So.
Yeah, it's funny because my buddy Al, who does the Florida Freaks channel, and he and I used to do some like weekly streams when the Book of Boba Fett came out, for example.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind doing some more of that, especially when some of these new shows come out. I don't know.
Acolyte.
Yeah. I mean, I admit, from what I've seen, I can't say I'm super jazzed about the Acolyte coming out, because it's just like, I don't know about it. But I will say, like, the live action TV shows have been a little hit or miss. Generously speaking, I feel like the animation has been a lot better. Like the Bad Batch,
Tales of the Empire.
Tales of the Empire was okay. Tales of the Jedi was really good.
Oh, it was peak. Like, it was like the Ahsoka like farmhand episode, like when the Inquisitor comes out, like that was ripped. It's ripped straight from the Ahsoka book that I also bought last year in Celebration.
Also the one with Dooku's
series.
reaction to Qui-Gon being killed.
Oh yeah, dude,
that was heart-wrenching.
Oh yeah, it was. But I love the animation. I'm here for all Star Wars content, and I mean, I like to think of myself as like the conductor of the hype train that I received like during Celebration, because like Acolyte and Skeleton Crew that's coming out this year, like those were all things that were announced at Celebration last year. Like they were all hinted, but I mean, you're having like the creative directors and freaking Jude Law coming out to come and just promote this show. So it's all building off of this hype that I got from Celebration, that now it's like they're finally here, they're coming. Like it's just the excitement is real, and it's just something that I want to pass on through the channel, through Instagram, and just through this podcast too. Like it's just
dude.
George said it best, like especially after, like you said, like after the first 6 movies came out, like we don't know, like at this point Star Wars is over. But George said it's like Star Wars is forever. Like Star Wars is something that sticks with you for, like you said, almost 50 years going on in 2027. Like it's gonna be something that'll be here forever.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that is true. But yeah, man, I definitely would love to do some more Star Wars related content on my channel as well. You've seen some of the pitch videos that I put out. I've got a few ideas that I'd love to pick your brain about. But maybe we'll have to get back together and do some of those episode reviews when some of these new shows drop.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, man. So where can folks find your channel?
Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube at BatuuBoii, BatuuBoii. That's the same user. It's the same tag for YouTube and Instagram. I'm kind of on TikTok, but it's mainly just Instagram and YouTube right now.
Cool, man. Well, yeah, I'll definitely throw up a link in the description so that folks can find your channel. And I have a feeling, now that I know that you're in Orlando as well, because I knew that you were from Miami originally, but then you moved here for Disney. Now that I know you're here full time, we'll have to do a few more collabs, you and I think.
Absolutely.
I think we'll have to make that happen.
We'll do it, man. We'll do whatever it takes, man.
All right, Felix.
I love getting to talk about this, and it's fun to catch up with you as well.
Thanks once again to Felix, aka BatuuBoii. Make sure you check him out on his YouTube channel. He's got a lot of cool stuff coming up. That's youtube.com/BatuuBoii. That's BatuuBoii. Again, youtube.com/BatuuBoii. Make sure you check him out, especially if you're a Star Wars fan. And I mean, if you're not a Star Wars fan, I'm surprised you're listening this long. But I appreciate you guys tuning in as always. As far as some upcoming events for me, on Sunday, August 4th, I will be doing an acoustic show. Just me. You know, it's been a while since I've done like a solo acoustic show. It's been many, many years, actually. I used to do them quite a bit many years ago. But this time I will be at Fish on Fire in Orlando. It's a really cool seafood restaurant. They've got all kinds of stuff there, but it's a nice bar and restaurant. It's right near Orlando International Airport. Fish on Fire is the name. I will be there Sunday, August 4th from 7 p.m. to 11, so solid 4 hours there with breaks. It'll be fun. I'll be playing a lot of acoustic cover songs, and you can come and have dinner, have a few drinks, whatever it is. It's a really cool, laid-back environment, and it's something I'm really looking forward to. And hopefully I get to do more of, because I don't get to do that all that often. But if you have any requests as far as like songs you would love me to play and sing, let me know. So yeah, make sure you do that. So that is it for this episode of the Phoenix Report. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, X, and Instagram at jackxconnor. Make sure you like me on Facebook, facebook.com/jackconnormusic. I actually just created a new link tree that'll have all my links right there available. That'll be right there in the description. So that'll have links to all my stuff. Not my YouTube, my social media. I also have been writing a lot more on fanfiction.net. I'm a big comic book fan, and so I've been writing some stories about some of these characters, and I've wanted to try my hand at that for a long time. So if you're interested in that, make sure you check that out as well. That'll be all available on the link tree. I think, fanfiction.net. It's at jackxconnor on fanfiction as well. So make sure you check that out if you like. Also feel free to check out some of my bands. Vertebreaker, obviously, facebook.com/vertebreakerband. I have the link tree for Vertebreaker as well. You have my Linkin Park tribute band, New Divide, at facebook.com/newdivideband. I also have Friends of the 90s, my 90s cover band. That's facebook.com/friends of the 90s, the number 90. All my links are available, so make sure you check them out. And thank you, as always, for tuning into this show. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, however you're listening to this. Go back and listen to some of the other episodes if you're interested. And thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. So thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. This has been the Phoenix Report. I'm Jack Connor. May the force be with you. Bright suns, whatever else they say on Batu. I'll catch you later.